Hello and a very warm welcome to the brand new edition of To The Point. I'm Kriti Mishra. And on today's show, my guest is National General Secretary of the BJP and Director of India Foundation, Mr. Ram Madhav. Mr. Madhav, welcome to Rajya Sabha Television and thank you so much for joining us through this virtual platform.
Thank you.
I understand that you are in self-quarantine. I hope all's well, sir.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Thank you.
Mr. Madhav, we'll try to elicit your views on a wide gamut of issues. But first, let's talk about Jammu and Kashmir. You recently visited Kashmir, and after killings of a number of political leaders by terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir, do you think that there's a sense of fear and insecurity that has crept in politicians in the valley?
Right now, there is a desperation in the ranks of the terrorists. They are under tremendous pressure. Our security forces, our law and order machinery is regularly neutralizing a number of terrorists, most of them who are coming from across the border from Pakistan. So out of desperation, they now started targeting innocent civilians, especially the activists of certain political parties, mainly those from our party, the BJP. There was a murder of one Congress Sarpanch also last month that probably we all remember. So there is an attempt to create scare and fear among the political activists, especially those belonging to national parties. And since BJP is a rising force in the valley, and our Karyakartas, the local BJP activists, are the ones who uphold the dignity and honor of our national flag, they stand up for India, they stand up for our constitution. There is an attempt by the terrorists to target them and in the process to create fear among people, those who want to stand up for India. But I must tell you that the local administration, state administration is taking all the necessary measures. Number one, to tackle these terrorists. Number two, to provide necessary security to the activists of all the political parties. Our party Karyakartas also have been provided enough security. In fact, in the case of people like Mr. Wasim Bari, who was killed last week, he had the security of almost 10 Jammu Kashmir police commandos. It's another matter that there was a lapse on the part of those commandos. They were not there with him when the incident happened. That laxity, that lapse on their part had led to that dastardly incident. But there is no reason for any scare or any fear. There is no need for people to panic. Government is taking all these steps to ensure safety of the political activists. On the other hand, no single terrorist will be spared. All of them will be neutralized. In fact, the shelf life of a terrorist in Kashmir Valley is less than 6 months today.
But, sir, what's the way ahead to reassure them, to replete them with a sense of security?
No, as I said, the administration has provided security to a large number of political activists, including Karyakartas of our party also in the valley. Firstly, Karyakartas, the activists have to be a little careful. They should not venture out without the security covering them. So they have to be a little careful, but there is no need to be in any panic or anything. Government is doing everything to ensure that their security is taken care of. In fact, for a number of party activists, political activists, alternate accommodations also have been provided. Secure accommodations also have been provided by the administration. Administration is taking all the necessary measures. And on the other hand, our campaign to neutralize the terrorists, it's also going on relentlessly. Not a single week passes without a few terrorists being neutralized by our security forces. There were weeks when almost 20, 25 of them were neutralized in a single week. So our campaign to eliminate or neutralize the terrorists also is simultaneously going on.
Absolutely, sir. But moving ahead, the centre on August 5th last year had revoked Article 370, which gave special status to the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. Your reading of the current situation on the ground in Jammu and Kashmir?
The last 11 months itself stand as a testimony to the fact that people of Jammu and Kashmir, especially people of the Kashmir Valley, they are open-minded about the new status. They had lived under Article 370 for 70 years. They had seen life under Article 370. They realized that it did not benefit the ordinary man on the street. It only benefited the rulers, the chief ministers, the ministers. They were behaving like royals, like Shahanshahs. But the ordinary people really did not get anything out of that special status. Now, the people of the valley, contrary to the predictions or rather expectations of some of the opposition party leaders in our country, they were quite open. They seem to be quite open to experiencing the new status and see if under the new status where the state is fully integrated with the rest of the country, there is no special discretion in favor of the ruling class in that state. Under these circumstances, whether it will benefit them more. That is how the people of Kashmir Valley, they are looking at the new status. Please recall that when we announced the abrogation of Article 370, the kind of speeches that were made in the parliament, if you recall, you remember that people were talking about bloodbath. People were talking about violence on the streets of the valley. But in the last 11 months, no such thing has happened. I mean, I have been handling the state for the last 6 years, at least for my party. I have seen days when we used to have 300, 400 instances of stone pelting in the entire state. From that stage to today, 11 months of absolute normalcy. Other than, of course, the terrorist incidents. Terrorist incidents are a totally different story that has been going on for the last 3 decades. But generally speaking, people today are not in favor of violence or terror. They probably want to see if the new status will benefit them more. The duty of the responsibility of the administration is precisely that they should convince the people by way of delivering goods at the doorstep of the people. That has been the effort of the administration in the last 11 months.
Right, so you've been on the ground and you've been interacting with the people constantly. There's a counter narrative that probably the opposition is trying to push, that this sense of calm is because of heavy security deployment. How would you refute that charge?
Uh, for Kashmiris, presence of security forces is not new. First of all, let us remember. Whenever there is a terror incident in any part of the state, especially any part of the valley, there used to be heavy deployment of security forces. But in spite of that, people used to come out, pelt stones at the security forces, fight with them. In the process, there used to be civilian casualties also. So, to today say that there is heavy deployment is totally a false narrative. Anybody can go and see on the streets of Jammu and Kashmir and in the streets of Kashmir Valley, life is just normal. The presence of the security forces that one talks about has always been there. I mean, in the last several decades, there has been some kind of a deployment of security forces in the valley, keeping in view the terror challenge. Other than that, things are quite normal. Secondly, let me tell you one more important aspect. The leaders of all the political parties, including the regional parties, the PDP, the NC, the Congress locally, all of them are today free and in their homes and in their places. So, if someone wants to take up a political agitation, everything is free and open today. So, if today people are not coming out onto the streets, pelting stones, if somebody says because of security, I for one would definitely say, no, that's not at all the reason. The reason is probably, I of course won't claim that they all have accepted the new status. Probably they still want to test it, still want to see it. That is what is a greater responsibility on all of us, the ruling party. That we should now tell them that minus 370, your life is going to be better. That effort we are making. But the silence is not because of any security forces presence or anything.
But so the moot question now remains about the restoration of statehood of Jammu and Kashmir.
Jammu and Kashmir, right now, the priority for the government, for as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, is number one to once, of course, right now we are in the midst of this corona pandemic. Once the state gets out of this pandemic, normalcy returns. The first priority is to complete the delimitation exercise as mandated by the UT Act. we have to first of all complete the delimitation exercise. Next step would be to give a legislature for the Jammu Kashmir UT. That means elections have to be conducted. These two things have to be completed. That is going to be the immediate priority. At an appropriate time, in fact, Home Minister has said it on the floor of the Parliament that at an appropriate time, the other issues will definitely be addressed. But right now, the priority is delimitation followed by a legislature for Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory.
So, are we looking at a specific time frame for that? I understand we are amidst this coronavirus pandemic, the problems induced by this pandemic, but are we looking at some kind of timeline for it, for delimitation process and for the elections as well?
Had this pandemic not been there, by now we would have been in the midst of the delimitation exercise by now, as we talked. Once the exercise is over, then the way for elections will be paved. It would have been an election time in the state, but the corona virus has upset many of these timetables. So I am only hoping that in Jammu and Kashmir there will be other issues. From November onwards, winters set in. Once winters set in, a lot of issues arise, especially the remote areas in Kashmir Valley. So we have to keep all those factors in mind. So I am not in any position to talk about any definite timetable. But as from our party, we only hope that this whole process is completed as soon as possible.
Right, sir. That's a very legit point that you're making. But very soon we'll complete 1 year of abrogation of Article 370, the biggest gain so far, according to you, Mr. Madhav.
The biggest gain is the realization that every Kashmiri, generally the thinking in the rest of the country used to be that Kashmiris all are separatists, or probably they want a special status, etc., etc. The biggest message that people of Kashmir gave to rest of the country is that majority of them, most of them, are as patriotic as all of us. It's one important message for us. So the point is, today they are waiting for certain good things to happen in their day-to-day life. That challenge is to be seriously taken up by our administration and our government, which we are doing. In fact, we have not talked about Ladakh. Ladakh also became a separate union territory. Government of India has sanctioned 5,000 crore special financial assistance to the new union territory that is helping in undertaking a number of developmental projects and activities in Ladakh union territory also. See, the urge today is for development, and our administration is working in that direction.
Absolutely, sir. And before we talk about something else, what is one key challenge for the government in Jammu and Kashmir now and in Ladakh now?
No, Jammu and Kashmir, certain continuing challenges will always remain. For example, tackling this terror, which has been going on for the last 3 decades, will be a challenge. It has a it's taking a new forum, and today, targeting the political activists. On that front, government and administration needs to take certain measures, which they are taking. But the real issue is, first of all, as promised in the UT Act, we have to give them a legislature so that the UT is run by the political leadership. Today, we are running it using the bureaucratic leadership. It's an interim arrangement. This is not going to be the permanent arrangement as far as the Jammu and Kashmir UT is concerned. It has to be handed over to political leadership. For that, we need to conduct elections there. We are only hoping that government would be in a position to conduct the elections as soon as possible and hand over the responsibility of running the union territory to the political leadership.
Right, absolutely. Those were very important details that you shared with us. And shifting focus from Kashmir to the desert state of Rajasthan, your take on the political turmoil there, sir?
Look, Rajasthan, whatever is happening in that state is purely an internal affair of the Congress party. It is not BJP's responsibility to keep Congress party united. It is their own responsibility. It is their own headache. That's why sometimes we feel, it's very funny to hear Congress leaders blaming us. It is a problem between the chief minister and deputy chief minister of the Congress party. Why are you blaming BJP? Is BJP is the contract for keeping CM and deputy CM together? Is it with BJP? It is your responsibility. You handle it. As far as we are concerned, we are a responsible opposition party in the state. That role our party is playing. I think this is an internal matter for Congress.
Sir, you say it is an internal matter, but the Congress alleges that the BJP is trying to foment the trouble, whether it was in Madhya Pradesh and now in Rajasthan.
Totally baseless. That's what I'm saying. If they cannot keep their party together, and if they want to find a whipping boy somewhere, and they find BJP to be the whipping boy, that is ridiculous. Your party, you have to be united. You have to run your party. Why are you blaming BJP? What has BJP done in all this? So this allegation against BJP is utterly baseless. We are in a democratic polity, in democracy. In a democratic way, parties try to form governments. You had the opportunity to run the government. You are unable to run it. You are fighting. Your CM and deputy CM is fighting. And you are blaming BJP. That is very funny.
Right, so let's see how things shape up in Rajasthan. But talking about a more important issue, which is COVID-19, the numbers are inching up. Of course, our mortality rate is low. How do you see India's fight against COVID-19, sir?
Looking at the size of our population, and more importantly, looking at the population density of our country, we all must realize that we have very effectively contained the spread of this pandemic. It is today limited to a few cities and a few states. Almost 60% of the country is largely free from the spread of this virus. That is because, number one, the government under Prime Minister Modi has taken timely decisions, tough decisions, but on a timely basis that has helped in containing the spread of the virus in a very big way. Having said it, while I do give a lot of credit to Prime Minister and the government for timely decisions and all, we cannot but forget the role played by number one, the entire civic administration that includes our doctors, our nurses, our sanitation workers, our police, our civil bureaucracy. You know, generally we talk about them, we used to talk that they are all corrupt, they are inefficient. Look at the way they stood up at the time of this challenge. They have done such a wonderful work, such a wonderful service that today, largely because of them, that we are able to contain it. In the process, about 100 doctors have laid down their lives fighting corona. Dozens of nurses have suffered. Others have suffered. Yet, in the fight, their contribution is very important. But most important is the contribution of 1.3 billion Indians. We showed enormous discipline, enormous restraint, enormous commitment in following certain guidelines. Not only that, had people not come forward to feed the needy people during this lockdown period and all, probably India would have seen Bhukmari, hunger, deaths and hunger situation, rampant hunger situation. We do not see that today because millions and millions of Indians have come forward to help the needy people at the hour of this challenge or crisis. I think the way India has handled this coronavirus should become a textbook case for all the democracies in the world, a textbook case.
Right, sir. But at this hour, Prime Minister has also given us a mantra, which is to go vocal for local. We're talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. But manufacturing has been the Achilles heel for India's economy for a very long time now. How do we become a manufacturing hub?
The challenge that we will face following the corona pandemic will be the economic challenge. In order to overcome the economic challenge, Prime Minister has given this call for Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant India, a country that stands on its own feet. Towards that, there is one step where we turn to Swadeshi. That is the first step. Swadeshi means encouraging local production, consuming local products. The question that you asked about manufacturing industry, We can address that challenge of creating a big manufacturing base in India by asking people to consume domestically produced products. So that is what is an important aspect of Swadeshi. But while we develop our own industry, strengthen our own manufacturing base, we need to aspire to become global brands. That is real meaning of Atmanirbhar Bharat. India has to be local. We have to be vocal about local, but the objective should be to become global. That's what Prime Minister has been saying. So towards that end, we need support from all over. Let the world come to us, invest in India so that we can create global brands. We stand on our own feet and address the needs of our country, that is Swadeshi, but also we will become global brands catering to the entire world. That is what Atmanirbhar Bharat means. That is the call Prime Minister gave, and we are already moving in the direction. I can tell you, during the pandemic period itself, we have been able to secure $20 billion foreign investment into our country. Just in 2 months' time, we will march forward in that direction.
Absolutely, sir. And lastly, I'd just like to understand, I've been asking this to a lot of experts that I interact with. We're talking about a new normal. We have to get accustomed to a new normal. You also said that there will be a flight of capital from China in the post-COVID period. How do you look at the post-COVID period and, more importantly, India's role in that period?
Post-COVID global scenario is going to offer a huge opportunity to India. Today, the world is in a way rudderless, leaderless. Countries like America have been badly bruised by the corona pandemic. It will take some time for them to bounce back. On the other hand, countries like China have hugely lost their credibility. So today, the larger world looking at some kind of a leadership, a peg around which it can again gather and rise as one world. That role has to be played by India. India has to prepare itself for that greater role. What we are talking about, new normal, etc., will apply largely to our economic life and our public, that is government institutions. We are now turning more inwards, not just we, the whole world is turning more inwards. In this sense, today we are also talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. So India should become an attractive destination to many such investments that may come out of China or anywhere else. Some countries want to look for safe investments. India should become that safe destination. But India's role is not just limited to becoming another global manufacturing hub alone. Together with that, India has to rise as a global leader, giving direction to the world in many areas. Areas like climate change, which is going to be an important new normal for the globe, for the world in the coming days. Healthcare is going to be a big issue. Technologies like artificial intelligence, robotics are going to play a very big role in the coming days. Rule-based institutions, world order. It requires a new global world order. United Nations has completed 75 years, and today its relevance has come down. We have to think about new institutions in all these areas. If one country has that credibility, that is India. Now India has to prepare to play a greater role in the post-COVID world.
Right, absolutely. I completely take your point on that one, sir. But you joined us through this virtual platform in the era of social distancing, discussed all those things in detail with us. Thank you so much for this erudite conversation, Mr. Ram Madhav, and take care and stay well.
Thank you.